been a bit since I talked about Death Battle on this channel, hasn't it? Well, it is what most of you stuck around for, so it only seems logical that I do a video on it every once in a while whenever I think of a topic I want to discuss. And today that'll be the second part to a video I made over 2 years ago, oh my god, talking about my favourite scenes in every episode from seasons 1 through 8. I figured it'd make for an easy video to catch up on the episodes that have come out since then for seasons 9 and 10. They are two of my top 3 favourite seasons, so of course I'm going to want to praise them as much as possible. I'm not going to be updating anything from the first 8 seasons though. I don't think much will have changed since that old video, so go check that out if you want to hear anything from Fett vs Samus up to Saitama vs Popeye. Just be warned that it is noticeably a few years old by this point, so my confidence on the mic was even less than it is now. Same guidelines go for this as they did in the previous video. I have to pick a specific scene, sequence, shot or whatever rather than an overarching point like voice acting or music. And for variety's sake I can't pick the deaths, but I can go with parts of the build-up or aftermath that stand on their own. Also, Nem is updating his least favourite scenes video to release on the same day, so go watch that if you're interested. I'll have it in the description and an end cards. Alright, now let's get started. The scene in the tent with all the sketchy effects after Jinx inhales the Joker venom is such a sick looking taste of how out there the rest of the season would get with some of its visuals. There are plenty of other cool touches here as well, like Jinx grabbing the camera and Harley looking like she's surrounding her thanks to the hall of mirrors that they're in. And this effectively conveys one of Jinx's main advantages, that she's so used to breathing in toxic fumes that the gas isn't likely to work on her. 4 times the breathing and all that. The Megamind reference gives me life. Having Zatanna flaunt how she's having fun with all this after Wanda tries to flex her power is such a characterful response and only served to endear me to her more. Also shout out to how smoothly the animation switches between the few frames of the hand-drawn close-up and her normal sprites. I have never been more inclined to watch JoJo's than when I was told that Jonathan moving his body to have Tanjiro's sword pass between his lungs is fully accurate to the show's brand of goofiness. The line that shows up when Tanjiro finds the weak spot is a Demon Slayer thing that I'm vaguely aware of as well, so that's cool. Maybe I'll revisit that as well someday after I accidentally dropped it. I don't share the adoration that a lot of people seem to have towards this episode, but I could never take away from how incredible the final flash is. It serves as a solid fake-out attack and all that, but it's really sold by the sheer scale of it reaching far past Earth and the amount of power that Lanny's putting into that scream. Trunks could never. This is an episode that peaks right out of the gate. Not because it falls off at all, the fight and especially the kill are fantastic, but for as close as that all gets, the setup stands out as the best one Death Battle has ever done. I can't think of any others that compare. Homelander's monologue about his status is great, and Yongye's deliveries of every single one of his lines goes to show how well an actor can get the feel of a character down to where you don't even notice that they don't sound dead on like they do in the source material. The slight pauses, repeated words, and casual yet still menacing tone until the final line where he gets fully aggressive are all perfectly on brand for Homelander. As is Nolan's blunt response detailing exactly how he's gonna put Homelander down after the legitimately shocking reveal that he killed Debbie to try and scare Nolan off his turf. And yet for as much as I've talked up this opening over the years, I feel like I haven't given enough praise to all the small details. Like Nolan's glance to the side before the Debbie reveal indicating that something's up before we even know what it is, the eerie music building even more of an atmosphere, and you know what, I'm gonna get up on my soapbox and defend the episode taking place at Christmas. I see it brought up as something people find weird, some even going as far as to call it a downside to the animation to have such a random setting. But I honestly think that Homelander having that Santa hat on and slurping his mug of cocoa as he walks around someone else's house like he owns the place helps to further sell that he thinks he's untouchable. It makes it so much more characterful. Plus it adds to the catharsis when he gets put down so quickly and easily. So yeah, the Christmas setting actually enhances the episode and isn't just something random because of the time of year Liam wrote the script at, even though that's definitely what it was. A lot of the camera tricks in this one really tickle my fancy, with my favourite being the Big Bang engulfing the screen, then zooming out to show that Magneto was able to condense it into a ball that he fires right back at the giant mutant baby. It lets Magneto feel absurdly powerful, while also making sense narratively for him to redirect Tetsuo's strongest attack to deal the most damage after he'd been holding his own in a weaker state before. Magneto's line here is also a fantastic way to show how his view of Tetsuo has changed over the course of the battle. He started thinking of him as an impudent little shit, now he sees him as the victim he is that needs to be helped. Great character writing, inventive uses of powers, and cool visuals all condensed into such a short sequence. The Hydra joke still puts a dumb smile on my face, I can't help it. Plenty of episodes have those kinds of, oh that makes so much sense, how did I never think of that before interactions. And having Wukong assume his 3-headed form only for Herc to be fed up with him is one of my favourites in that category. I also like that they never have him mention the Hydra by name or draw it out beyond the only 4 words that he needed. Less is more after all. And since Nem isn't going to be covering this one in his video, video, I may as well fill in for the worst scene. It's going to be a tough call since all of the stuff I dislike comes from the death. If I can count it, then the narrator spoiling the outcome sucks. If not, then everything to do with the constellations feels like it goes against the point of using the pre-godhood versions of the characters. If not that, then Wukong's corny, he's right behind me tier line in response to his win. And if none of that counts, then, I guess the little scuffle following the banger Hydra joke is a little weak, both in terms of its scale and in its sound design. Boba Fett cauterizing his wound with a lightsaber is one of the most metal things to happen throughout the entirety of Season 9. I wish that was people's takeaway from the episode rather than John bitch-ass Yaocha and forgetting that okay and bad are not synonyms. Wiz and Boomstick's involvement in the fight stands out as one of the funniest jokes in what's already one of the funniest episodes of the show to me. It takes full advantage of the bonus episode status to have the host actively try to influence the outcome, which Boomstick actually gets one up over Wiz on. I love that he's the first one to successfully hack into the codec, and Wiz getting cut off immediately by Lotus still makes me laugh to this day. Anyway, can't wait to get comments telling me I forgot this one even though I clearly addressed it. That's always fun. And no, I didn't forget the 7 Battle Royale last time, I just didn't care. My one worry with this episode upon its announcement was that they'd make a big quirky song and dance about how, oh my god, John Wick killed these guys with a pencil. A pencil, Wiz. So I was very relieved to find out that they worked it naturally into the fight instead. Having him take Bond's exploding pen and try to turn it against him is a much better use for it, because then you have him trying to click it to use the point, but Bond trying to click it again to put it away. And the whole time it has you on the edge of your seat trying to count how many times it was clicked to see whether or not it'll explode. Which it does, in a way that was perfectly tailored to appeal to me, having them both stop and stare as it falls to the ground, and Bond saying that he lost count, which he gets cut off right before he can finish saying. The comedic timing is perfect, and I love that Moist Critical just plays along with it. The actual fighting during this portion is also cool, and the music aids in building tension. I've heard the criticism that the sound can be heard 10 times so nothing should have happened, but I'm willing to believe that Bond could have just pressed it in advance since we see him adjusting it when he's in the elevator. Apocalypse Marvel Comics X-Men gets a really cool and intimidating line for this amazing looking shot of him towering over the camera with the moon behind him, creating some gorgeous lighting. But Adam's response somehow manages to top it, saying that Apocalypse will be the one to fear him as he puts on the ring powered by fear and wipes out the robot squad is the perfect rebuttal. There is no other episode in all of Season 9 that has kept me on the edge of my seat unsure who would win, quite like Trunks vs. Silver. Trunks' sword dealing damage to Super Silver was and still is huge, as it's the only time a Super Hedgehog form hasn't been able to wall out everything or been countered by timing it out. Trunks dealt an honest to god deadly blow for the first time in the show's history, and having Silver flicker in and out of the form as the glitchy effects to start everything around them before they pull out their trump card moves is such a tense and exciting way to lead into the ending. Aquaman's hyper-realistic mouth as he reacts in shock to SpongeBob's wacky regeneration is one of my favourite jokes in all of Death Battle. It's a nice reference to SpongeBob's series both in presentation and the line itself, neither of which feel forced. On an unrelated note, this might be too close to the death to count, but since I've somehow managed the blunder of not elaborating on it like this before, I may as well bring it up now. The grave at the end saying Ocean Man on it warms my heart. It took the one joke I wasn't clicking with and paid it off with a reference to the song that plays during the SpongeBob movie's credits. A wonderful tribute, not only to a show I hold near and dear to my childhood, but the man that made it all happen and that we lost too soon. Rest in peace, Steven Hillenburg. Wow, what a tough choice between the 3 things the title characters do on screen. Nah, but really this was an easy call. Jason's eyes showing for the first and only time when he hears his mother demanding his victory is such a cool character moment. Both slashers are monsters, but between them, Jason can at the very least be said to be the way that he is because he's the victim of his own origin story. He still has that capacity for some semblance of human emotion, since his love of his mother and desire for revenge is what motivates him rather than Michael being evil incarnate. So having his eyes show through instead of the shadow that normally obscures them when he hears that motivator is great at showing how he's the only one with even a sliver of humanity left in him. It's surprisingly compelling writing for a character that naturally isn't able to speak. I didn't expect anything like it from the episode in all honesty. That I'll tear out your heart exchange is one of the best bits of dialogue Death Battle has ever seen. Sauron coldly telling Lich King exactly how he'll kill him, only to be met with Arthur's booming voice declaring that it would amount to nothing because there's no heart there for him to find. He already did that to himself canonically and is no worse for wear. It's perfectly written, perfectly delivered, in general it's perfect. Having Deku's line as he goes all out be an echo of what All Might said in his own episode is perfect. I've heard some say it feels out of nowhere, but like, the last line Asta got was, "Hit me with all you've got, because I'm never going down!" And the delivery of that made it a strong contender to take this spot as well. But he unfortunately didn't have the cool United States of Smash lights backing him up. Sorry Asta, maybe next time. I'm recording this a couple of days later unscripted because I forgot to mention I also really like when Deku calls back to Asta's hit him really hard line at the start. I think it's really funny that his strategic mind comes to that same simple conclusion over the course of the battle. If the statue fist bump is too close to the death, then I'll go with a short joke at the start. Having Goku non-maliciously ask Vegeta if he's that much taller than him now that he's seeing the two of them side by side from a third person perspective is actually kind of charming in a silly way. Yeah, it's not exactly something that's in line with what they do in canon, but it does feel like it's in the spirit of the characters. And quite frankly, given that this entire animation is just shot-for-shot Dragon Ball references with zero unique flair, I welcome something that deviates a little bit from what Dragon Ball's done before. The various visual gags zooming out to show the small scale and lack of threat most of the shrunken set pieces pose are really amusing. Between them, I'd say my favourite is Raymond getting swarmed with all the ants that can lift 50 times their own body weight, only for him to grow back to normal and step on them with ease. Still can't believe the build up to the final clash is better than the actual final clash itself. The two of them getting back up after this explosion, readying their sun and moon blades and charging towards each other as the music crescendos gets me so excited every time. Apparently this shot and the Moonlight Greatsword appearing from the Aether being stuck in the ground are also references to Dark Souls, go figure. The entry of the Iron Sand Kaiju is incredibly well built up to with the city's lights flickering. Then you see the sheer size of this absolute unit, making you wonder exactly how Killer was going to get out of this tricky predicament. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Well, he kinda did, but then he didn't. I will never not crack up at Stitch dropping a line so vile that it not only makes Rocket gag, but switches his attitude from, I'm gonna shoot the shit out of this thing, to, oh, he needs to die immediately. And I appreciate that we are given no hints as to what Stitch actually said. They leave us to fill in the blank for ourselves. Find an episode with a funnier way of escalating the conflict, it can't be done. Guessing the Genjutsu is off limits, so I'll go with the other illusion seen to feature Padme's ugly mug. It's a clever way for Obito to try and distract Vader for long enough to toss him into the Kamui dimension, but all it accomplishes is pissing Vader off, likely making him even stronger given how Sith powers work. And that rage is palpable as he raises his hand to crush Obito's eye and shut down any Kamui shenanigans for the rest of the fight now that he's figured out where it's coming from. Huge props to how well his body language conveys emotion despite his face being concealed. The hand-drawn Phoenix Force and Soul Self look stunning and contrast against each other very well, so it feels very mean to pick a shot that leaves one of them out. But this shot of the Phoenix Force far eclipses the rest of the already great looking fight. It has that same nice visual contrast with the bright orange and the dark space background, and the framing gets across the scale and majesty of the big space bird in a way that the rest of the fight sadly wasn't able to deliver on to quite the same extent. The two simultaneously giving into their madness is such a well-directed sequence. Flickering between them as it zooms in on their eye, contrasting the Guts shot becoming monochrome next to the bright fire around Dimitri just looks so damn good. And the line's a cool double reference, calling back to both Guts down to the last one and Dimitri's kill every last one of them. It also tickles my brain when two characters start to say the same thing separately and then they overlap when they finish the line, so this gets bonus points for that. This opening sets such a cool and unique tone that I wish the rest of the battle stuck with rather than turning into the most generic comic herald fight it could possibly be. I could hold it against the beginning for setting me up for disappointment, but thankfully it does come back and surface monologue at the end as he claims his hollow victory, which is the highlight, but I can't include it for obvious reasons. Still, this is a cool way to kick things off. It should come as no surprise that my favourite death battle episode also contains probably my favourite individual scene. How many death battles can you say have honest to god plot twists in them? No, a fake out death isn't quite the same thing. Bill vs Discord is the only one I can think of that has one to quite this extent not played for a laugh. By all accounts, Bill has won by this point. He destroyed Discord's body and sealed the powers of his soul. The battle is over, but Discord gets one last, more important victory, showing that he'd used the fight as a distraction to stop Bill from noticing that he'd brought the two of them to the Nightmare Realm so he could revert Canterlot back to normal, surprising both as a reveal and how emotionally effective it is to see him willing to sacrifice his own life to save the people he loves, a fate that this expression at the start tells me he already accepted the strong possibility of. And Paul Guyot gets to deliver what is bar none my favourite line in Death Battle, not just for how cool and shocking the reveal is, but for how effectively the venom in his voice contrasts his previously jovial and goofy demeanour. They didn't need to have it pan out like this, but I'm so glad they did rather than having the depressing and dour apocalypse ending. It's yet another showing of how this episode commits to its storytelling better than any other, and how dedicated the team was to making sure this fan-voted matchup was as special as it could possibly be. I feel like people are expecting this entry to be the horror segment in the building, and yeah, that's fantastic, but personally the bit that clicks with me the most is their final scuffle on that rooftop next to the radio tower. Cole's response to Alex berating him for wasting his powers helping people is up there as one of my favourites of the fight, and the way the music kicks back in as he summons lightning down the radio tower never fails to get me excited. is. I also love when Cole charges up and rockets off the tower straight into Alex, who manages to stand his ground, bear hug Cole, and leap into the sky before the prettiest shot in the whole fight. And if that all sounds like too much to count as one sequence, then I guess just cut everything before Cole throwing himself at Alex. As cool as all the big explosions are and all that, this fight still peaks before it even starts for me. Megatron biting back against Frieza's claiming a Cybertron is sick, and Frieza's reaction to it, saying he loves when they monologue back, is the best line in the animation. The venom in Little Kuribo's voice is incredible. And I didn't know, or at the very least remember, he had the Frieza laugh in him, so that was a very welcome surprise. And to cover for Nem on the worst scene for the second and final time in this video, sorry to say, but I can't stand the Golden Frieza transformation. My two biggest problems with the overall fight are that it drags so much stuff out and Frieza feels too dominant, both of which are at their worst here. This goes on for nearly half a minute, and that is all Frieza, with Megatron being entirely out of the picture. The reference is neat, but it's inherently less impressive rotating a camera around a 3D model than it is for the sequence to be hand-drawn. Okay, now back to positivity for the rest of the video. Another Omni-Lander situation where I mean in the best possible way that this animation peaks with the setup. Gojo pulls every obnoxious moviegoer trick in the book to try and get under Makima's skin, talking over the film, stealing her snacks, slurping and coughing as loudly as he possibly can, pointing to the screen to make himself as visible as possible, and then in the middle of all of it dropping the coldest "shame I have to do my job and kill you" line ever before getting right back into his Wojak pointing. It's the perfect blend of endearing obnoxiousness and casually intimidating that sold me on needing to check out Jujutsu Kaisen as soon as possible because I knew he'd be my favourite character in it. And I was right. This feels so in line with the Gojo I know and love. And Gianni's vocal deliveries are all impeccable. Makima's great here too. I love how she doesn't let him phase her at all, only reacting with a side eye once Gojo mentions knowing her true nature. There are plenty of little details I like here as well. The setting fits both better than you'd think since Makima's a movie lover and Gojo trained Yuji by making him watch stuff from his DVD stash. The episode's 3D losers all make cameos in the seats behind the pair, and Jack vs. Afro's being screened as a full theatrical samurai action movie, which is really cool. Everything about this opening works, from its tone to its characterization to its Easter eggs and callbacks. I don't exactly have a ranking laid out of all the setups on Death Battle, but I would be shocked if this didn't crack the top 5. This is a case where you could pick any scene from the fight and you'd be hard pressed to find something I wouldn't immediately understand. Because just about everything here is a joke that makes me laugh, a character interaction I find super charming, a creative use of their toon force, or something that goes harder than it has any right to. It's so consistent and it's absurdly high quality for the entire animation. So it says a lot that it still has a sequence that stands out among them. Scooby gorging himself on all his snacks and stacking all the powers to become a cosmic deity who throws a continent-sized punch at Courage is the perfect balance of hilarious and genuinely cool. I mean, they take him saying and managed to make it just the right level of intimidating with the filters in Billy's delivery while still being primarily silly. Courage's scream deflecting it is insane as well. The impact is so tremendously well with how it distorts the music, then gets held on for about 10 seconds. Edward Bosco belted his lungs out and it paid off wonderfully. Should also go without saying that the animation is drawn incredibly well and is composited seamlessly onto the 3D background. My favourite reference lines in Death Battle are the ones that work in something iconic while recontextualizing it. Tony turning a villain speech into a declaration that he's better because he's the one without a god complex. Hulk turning Broly's "I'm the devil" line against him as a reference to the Devil Hulk comic run. Yoda telling Mickey that there is no try as a way to encourage him to not hold back against him. And the Doctor's "I don't want to go" line being changed from something they say when they're afraid of regenerating into their next life to telling Rick that they are refusing to go down for good and that Rick can't win. Rick not shooting them during either of their monologues makes sense in the fight's narrative since he knows he has to wait for the regeneration to kick in before he can land a permanent killing blow. And Doctor picked up on him telling them that, which is why they stall it until they can disable Rick's weaponry. Only then do they regenerate with so much force that it starts tearing apart the TARDIS interior as the music swells. The easy highlight of this vastly underappreciated episode. Picking a favourite in Galacticron is tricky because the bulk of the appeal is, damn, this looks amazing, which applies to the whole fight. In terms of what happens in it though, separate from how it looks, it's tough to pick out something super noteworthy that happens because all the action's kinda standard. Cool and all, but nothing mind-blowing. The most creative thing that happens is when Unicron condenses a star into a black hole and uses it like a roll of quarters in a boxing glove to add an extra oomph to his punch. So I'm inclined to say that's my favourite part. No, I didn't put them out of order by mistake. I love Galactus vs Unicron and all, but come on. There's no episode more fitting to end off with than Goku vs Superman. My initial plan when drafting this list out in my head was to go with the final clash for being so visually stunning and Michael Kovac's deliveries of the screams being among the best to ever grace the show, and that certainly is the scene to get the strongest reaction out of me. It never fails to get me excited. But the more I think about it, the more I have to go with the aftermath of the battle as my personal favourite scene. After the awesome final clash shattering reality like glass and the delayed reveal of Goku's halo showing that he lost, which don't count under my rules but I wanted to bring them up anyway, we get my favourite dialogue exchange we've had in a long time. Goku being bummed that he lost but taking it like a champ. Superman exclaiming how close it was and that he did end up enjoying himself, and both of them agreeing to go another round as they fist bump while they look across the rivalry spanning the multiverse. To me, this scene encapsulates just how much the show has evolved since its early days. Not just in its production value, that should be obvious even from just the amazing background artwork here, but from how they approach things now. Early Death Battle was more of just silly fun fights that want to do cool stuff. Maybe you'll have to make some concessions with the characters' personalities to make it happen, but that's totally fine. That's not a jab at those old seasons, they still have plenty of episodes that I love to this day. Nowadays though, the show is still trying to be fun and make cool stuff happen, but it's also become an outlet for a far larger team of artists to pay tribute to characters they love, tell stories, and get even more ambitious with the kinds of things they're able to write. Now more than ever, these episodes are love letters to the characters and series they use, and nowhere is that more evident than here. You really get the feeling that Ben put everything he had into the script and that he'd learned from the mistakes of the second round 8 years prior, and it's aided by the gentle piano music and friendly line deliveries from Kovac and Mobus. It's this clear level of passion and care that makes this scene such a standout, and it really helps to elevate this already great episode up to being something amazing. Again, I love Galactus vs Unicron, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the real season finale. Truly remarkable beyond words. And there we go, I somehow managed to waffle about these 2 seasons for as long as I did for the first 8. I don't know how I managed that. Be sure to go check out that video on the first 8 seasons if you want to hear about my favourite parts of the older episodes, and go check out Nem's ones on his least favourites as well. It's all in good fun, he's just doing the counterpart video to this because we mostly share the same opinions on our favourite scenes, so no point in both of us releasing the same video. Anyway, that'll do it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll probably do another one of these every 2 seasons if Death Battle's able to keep going for that long. I don't know, its situation still isn't sorted as of the time I'm recording this. That's if I'm still even making videos by that time. I still want to keep going at it for as long as possible, I'm having a lot of fun with it, but you can never predict where you'll be a few years from now. Alright, bye, see you later.